So tonight we're going to talk about the future of art, the future of technology, the future of design. And the future is something very interesting, because the future, we first have to imagine it, to wonder, to think of what we want it to be. And only then we can construct it, only then we can realize it. So how will this future look like? And what's the role of imagination and technology in that? And how can we use design and art to improve our life? That's the topic for tonight. So this is me in the studio in the Netherlands. I always love to make prototypes. So this is Lotus, a foil which based on the heat of your body opens up. Based on the heat of your breath, it opens, and when it gets cold, it shrinks again, it moves. So one day we got a call from Lille, a very famous city nearby Paris in France, to activate this very famous old church. A beautiful building, recently renovated, but not so many people went there. It was a bit silent. So the city asked us, can you make something to make this place feel more alive? So we made Lotus Dome. This is inside the dark church. So we had 14,000 visitors suddenly in 4 weeks. A lot of people visited. And it was beautiful to place something of the future, something interactive, to activate this famous ancient old space. So I became interested in that. How can art activate? How can art create places where you feel more connected? And currently a smaller Lotus model is exhibited in Mori Art in Tokyo. It's one of the only objects you can touch. Or here in an old pedestrian tunnel. Usually tunnels are a bit scary, people don't like to go there. But we placed Dune, thousands of fibers which react to the sound and motion of people walking by. So here the landscape becomes interactive, not a sum of walls, doors and windows, but connected to your touch, to your sound, to your behavior. The environment becomes intuitive. Although it is high technology, sensors, cables, wires, microchips, it's not about that. It's about interaction, about play. Wedding couples go there to have their photos taken. So suddenly a place of a tunnel, which is a bit scary, transforms into a place of wonder. All of these projects, they are created, they're designed, they are engineered. So this is Studio Roosegaarde in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. A studio that I founded 10 years ago, basically because I had a lot of ideas, but nobody knew how to build them, how to realize them. So I thought, okay, then I'll do it myself. So you start young, broke, and innocent. And one of those three I am not anymore. I'm not going to tell you which one. But 10 years later, this is the studio. So it's a team of designers, of engineers, of project managers, trying to create the dreams we have and realize them. So basically you have an idea, you put some smart people in a room with a pizza hotline on the door, and you say, nobody leaves the room until we have a solution. Prototyping, failing, a lot of failure, that you're trying to learn from it. but in the end you make it happen. And I'm the son of a math teacher, so science is such a great tool to make the dreams that you have in your brain come true. We publish books, like the recent book here in Veden, about the idea and the vision to share the stories. But what really drives me personally is this. This is an overview of World Economic Forum, one of the think tanks in Geneva, indexing the top 10 skills you and I need to become future-proof. So I'm giving you a shortcut here, 2022. Look at this. It's not about money. It's not about technology. Look at this. Number 3, creativity. Number 2, learning. Number 1, thinking, analytical thinking. All the things a robot or a computer is really bad at. So yes, we will live in a hyper-technological world, where the car will be self-driving, where our accountancy, garbage collection, all these things have or will change because of technology. But does that mean that we as humans just become robot food? No. It means that our human skills, our desire to learn, our desire to share, our desire to progress. I mean, why are we here tonight? These are the important skills that we need to train, because that separates us from the machines. At that moment, I became inspired by Beijing smog. So inspired by that principle, we decided to build the largest smog vacuum cleaner in the world, which sucks up polluted air, cleans it, and releases it. Clean water, clean air, clean energy, clean space. These are the big 4 themes I want to address individually. So anything you design or you create, if it's a car, fashion, a building, a book, whatever, everything you design in the future needs to have these values in its DNA. If you don't do it, you are not future-proof. So let's talk about water. So I'm from Holland, from the Netherlands, yes? And as you may know, the Dutch, we the Netherlands, live below sea level, yes? So my Chinese friends in Shenzhen, they say, you are crazy. So who lives below sea level? Just move to Germany, move to the hills, move to higher ground. Why do you do that? But we don't. We stay. And we use design, we use technology, this beautiful system of dikes and windmills and pumps to create our home. And that's very interesting. So technology, innovation is already in our landscape, in the place where I grew up, where I built my tree huts. So on the left you have sea, on the right you have the Netherlands, Rotterdam, Amsterdam, and in the middle is this famous dike, 32-kilometer dam, which protects us against the water. So for more than 1,000 years we've been living with water, we've been fighting with water, we have tried to find harmony. But to create water awareness in the Netherlands, the Dutch government commissioned us to create water awareness. And therefore we created Waterlight, what you see here. A combination of LEDs and lenses which would show how high water level would be if we stop, if we don't think about the future. So this is the water level because of climate change. This is the water level if government doesn't take care of the landscape.
Best wel spooky. Spacey. Ja.
Wat ik het gevoel dat ik erbij krijg is een beetje onderwaters. Dat je onder een laag zit.
Ja, best wel mooi, vind ik.
With the waves above us. And it's magnificent.
Ik weet natuurlijk dat we beneden zeeniveau zitten, maar ja, zoals je het zegt, zou dat niet zo fijn zijn als ik dit opeens over me heen ga voelen, nee.
$60,000 people showed up here in Amsterdam, and some people were a bit scared. They were like, huh, is this our future world? But most people were more inspired. How do we live with nature? What can we learn from nature? And maybe that is the role of art, to inspire people to be curious about the future, not scared. A lot of people are scared of the future today, yes? Will the robots take over our job? Relationship with technology, relationship with China, everything is interesting. But I believe we shouldn't be scared, we should be curious. And these kind of artworks are there to trigger that kind of thinking. This project has been traveling all around the world. New York, Paris, London, Australia. This is here in Toronto, in Canada. And what is interesting for me as a maker is to look at the people, what they do in a project like this. Because the moment you give people space, space to think, physical space to wonder, they start to occupy it, they start to personalize it, they start to do things that I would never imagine. So for example here, this is what people start doing. How did she get there? People started to dress up as mermaids. Yeah. Crazy. Or here, Daft Punk came to record its video clip. And I think that's really beautiful for me to see how people interact with it, how they personalize it. I like the mermaid. I think it's very creative. And so we're looking forward to actually bring this project to Taiwan, to Taipei. And what is interesting also, the weather, the nature, it always changes. So when it rains, the light, the drop of water hits the light, so you get these sort of water diamonds. This was like a little present, a little gift that we got. So we actually made an artwork where the shittier the weather, the better the art is. Clean air. Yes. This is China, Beijing. So I love working in China. Been living and working there since 8 years, a professor in Shanghai, Tongji University. I learned a lot from it. At the same time, like every city, like every country, its desire for progress has side effects that you and I never imagined, and pollution is one of them. So this was the view from my room, good day, bad day. And it's not just Beijing, Shenzhen, Paris, London, my own town, Rotterdam. Every city is struggling with pollution. So the city has become a machine that is killing us. We live 6 to 7 years shorter. Children have lung cancer when they're 5 years old. At that moment, I became inspired by Beijing smog. And I remember being a boy, being a child, playing with plastic balloons. When you polish it with your hand, what happens then? It burns? No, it doesn't burn. Yeah, it's noisy, yeah, okay. Static, who said that? Yes, yeah, very good. So inspired by that principle, we decided to build the largest smog vacuum cleaner in the world, which sucks up polluted air, cleans it, and releases it. It's really weird that we accept it as something normal and take it for granted. And we built the first one. I wanted to create a place where citizens, makers, NGOs and governments can experience clean air. A bubble of clean air, where people can think, meet and work together how to make a whole city smog-free. It's a place created by the largest air purifying in the world, which can travel, a smog-free tower. In the future, waste should not exist. By putting the captured smog particles under high pressure, we create smog-free rings. And so by sharing a smog-free ring, you donate 1,000 cubic meter of clean air to the city where the smog-free tower is in. China, Poland, Korea, countries started to call us to collaborate with them to make smog-free parks, clean air parks. And it was really beautiful to work together with the governments to create parks which are 20 to 70% more clean than the rest of the city. To show it, to prove the technology, to share it. If the city has become a machine that is killing us, let's build machines that can heal us, that can help us. This is what happened here in Krakow, in Poland, one of the most polluted cities in Europe. A project is always like this, is long-term, connected to long-term investment in green energy, electrical cars, more bicycles. But this is a today solution, a short-term solution. And things happen that I could never imagine. You see these two little dogs here on the image? I arrived at the day of the opening. Tens of these little dogs were hanging out around the tower. A lot of them. Okay, so then we realized, of course, dogs have a very high sense of smell. They can smell 20, 30, 50 times better than us human beings. So they were suffering from the smog way more than us human beings. And of course, they can't run away. They're very tiny. But what happened is they could smell the clean air from far, far away. And they started to abandon their owner and hang out around the tower. And it's really interesting. So if the dogs can sense what is good for them, why can humans not? We also learn here, this is Beijing smog. This is the stuff that we were sucking up from the urban skies. So I believe in the future, waste should not exist. Waste for the one should be food for the other. Think like a circle. Think like nature. 42%, 48% of this stuff is carbon. We saw under a microscope. And we realized carbon under high pressure, you get diamonds. Inspired by that, we started to make smog-free rings. By sharing a ring, you donate 1,000 cubic meter of clean air to the city where the tower is in. This is Rotterdam smog. I also have Beijing smog, Delhi smog, Korea smog. What is interesting is that what happens is we put this online, Kickstarter campaign, crowdfunding. So the finance, the money we made with the jury helped us to build more smog-free towers. So the waste wasn't the waste, it was the activator, it was the enabler. But besides money, what was even more important was community. Wedding couples started to purchase it to get married. This is not actor, real wedding couple. New York Times, you can look it up online. New York Times validated this story, where he proposed to her to get married, not with a blood diamond from Africa, but with a smog-free ring. And they sent us this photo, and we were really excited about this. So we called them to check. She said yes. And this was really cool. Like, sometimes I still check on them. And they're still married, they're still doing okay, Somehow I feel responsible for this marriage, which of course I am not, but it's interesting. We need science, we need technology, but only technology in itself makes us lazy. We need stories, we need love, we need something shareable. Though when we combine those two worlds, that's when we create impact. This is a very famous bicycle path commissioned by the Van Gogh Foundation to celebrate his 125th anniversary. It charges at daytime via the night and glows at night. Clean energy. So back to this famous dike. We were commissioned to be part of the renovation of this famous dike. Because of climate change, the dike needed to be stronger. And so what you should realize is this is our icon. This is our Eiffel Tower. So we were honored to work on it. And we start to look at what is already there to highlight the iconic value of this famous structure. We found 60 floodgates, which you see here, designed by the grandfather of Rem Koolhaas, the famous Dutch architect. Same architect who designed Taipei Performance Center. So we renovated it, made sure that they look like temples again. Big renovation. But at the same time, we wanted to do something with light, with future, but we didn't want to use like LED or too much technology. It didn't felt really sustainable. So one night we realized, hey, wait, but of course there's already light present on this famous highway, which is the light of the cars. So reflection, inspired by the wing of a butterfly, which uses reflection to create its always vivid color. We presented it to our Minister of Infrastructure. This was our lady minister. 3 years later, 324 people, 13 million euro project, daytime, nighttime, permanent to see in the Netherlands. Why do we have streetlights burning the whole night when nobody's there? And how can we use what is already there, which is the headlights of the car, and sort of upcycle it to create an energy neutral landscape? This is how I like to see the future. Pragmatism pushed to such an extreme, it becomes poetry. I started to get the hang of it and started to get really interested in infrastructure, in roads, in highways. This is a very famous bicycle path commissioned by the Van Gogh Foundation to celebrate his 125th anniversary. It charges at daytime via the night and glows at night.
It's just like we're laying on a starry night.
Most publicized bicycle path in the world still to date. Yeah. And it just shows when we think about future, when we think about infrastructure, we can be more innovative through collaborations between industry, infrastructure industry, to connect history and future. Van Gogh literally walked these grounds in 1883. He lived here and worked here. So it was beautiful to celebrate his history and at the same time make a statement about future of green energy, of sustainable environments. It has been copied many, many times, but my Asian friends say to be copied is good. I'm still not really getting used to it, but okay. Continue to the energy. I think it's interesting. These are energy harvesting kites, wind energy. So this is a smart kite searching for the optimal wind, connected with the ground via a cable. And on the ground is sort of like a really big dynamo, you know, like on your bicycle, generating energy because of the push and the pull of the cable. Project is producing 20 to 100 kilowatts per hour. So this is really cool. For example, you could make a festival or a museum energy neutral. And of course the kite is an Asian invention, long time ago. It was invented in Asia. But we took that tradition and upgraded it with Dutch design, connected these two worlds between Asia and Europe. It's an example how our sustainable future can look like. And what is interesting, the interaction with the artwork started to evolve. These are photos taken from Instagram. They create their own story. They do things that we never imagined, and maybe that's good. And maybe that's the way I like to see the future. Our last one, these are light-emitting algae, like plankton. I'm a diver, like the diver in tropical Asia at night. I go diving at night. And it's really scary because you're like 10, 15 meters deep and your whole brain, your whole body is saying, get out of here. What are you doing? Why? After 1 minute, your brain starts to relax, you start to breathe, and you move your hands through the water and suddenly there is light. These are 700 million year old microorganisms which emit light. Nobody really knows why. Some say to scare enemies away or to communicate or side effects of evolution. In nature, they only live a couple of days, but we worked for 3 years on making the most light-emitting algae in the world, which would live for a long time. So we started to flood these old buildings with a tiny layer of this living light, this organic light. Space is dark. When you touch it, they wake up and they give light. This is, pure nature, living light. You can drink this if you want to. You get a little bit of diarrhea, but you can you can drink it. You give light from the inside. That's pretty cool. In the end of the exhibition, we make little cocktails out of it. Little sick, but not so much, and it was fun. But seriously, how can we bring nature back into our city? Because this is sort of history. This is the beginning of life, but it's also our future. This sounds, all these projects, may sound to you like a utopia, a perfect world, a rainbow in the sky that we will never ever reach. But I don't think that's true. Yeah. And I don't believe in a utopia. But I do believe in a protopia, prototype, step by step, trying to improve. We don't know how the future will look like. But we do know some other things. We can't go back. And if we don't invest in new ideas, we die. And maybe in a world full of global challenges, rising sea level, air pollution, space junk, we are living in a world where we're more defined by our future than by our history. And that's the role of art and design, to imagine that future world, to construct it, to create it. So I showed most of the projects are outside, yes? And that's very normal, because when I was a boy, I never stayed inside. I always went outside. Inside is boring. 2 years ago, I was asked by a big museum in the Netherlands to do an inside exhibition. And they asked me, can we do a big oeuvre show of all the projects? And I said to them, that's like a horrible idea. No. It's like we put all the old artworks with signs, please do not touch. Horrible, horrible. So I said, no, we're not going to do that. That felt like wind in a glass bottle, which is not wind anymore. And so they said, no, you can also do something different, something new. Okay. So we made a radical proposal to the museum. So rule number 1, no ugly, please do not touch signs. Rule number 2, you see these green exit signs there above your head? You see them there? When it's dark, very ugly light. So they have to go. And third rule, you as a visitor has to create the artwork. Your presence makes the artwork. Without you, there is no artwork. And so we proposed, and they said yes. And they were like, okay, shit, now we have to do it. And it was really cool to sort of challenge each other. There was a risk of failure, but they embraced it. So we made these signs. Please touch. I Googled for 2 hours, couldn't find it. We had to create this. That says something about today's contemporary museum. Presence is a dream landscape which interacts with your behavior. I wanted to create a place where you feel connected. It shows the impact you have on the world around you, in which you make the artwork and the artwork makes you. It was very interesting because we weren't sure if this would be, if people would understand it, if they would connect with it. And after running it, after the opening for 2 weeks and fine-tuning it and learning from it, we really connected with the audience. One of the most successful visited exhibitions in their 25-year existence. So many people. And what is interesting, the interaction with the artwork started to evolve. These are photos taken from Instagram.
Okay.
People do weird stuff. That's what we like. Yeah. And they create their own story. They do things that we never imagined, and maybe that's good. So for example, what they started to do is took the light of their phone and write on everything, making symbols or signals, scanning, sharing. And maybe that's the way I like to see the future. And maybe in Asian culture this sounds like weakness. Oh, I don't know. It sounds like a weakness. I think it's a good thing. I'm now expert in smog. I'm now expert in butterfly wing. I'm now expert in wind energy. 5 years ago, not. But you should also be open and really, let yourself guide you, let yourself be guided by curiosity. Where we use technology, where we use art, but to activate the relation with ourselves, with the people around us and the world around us. I think if we embrace that kind of thinking even more in the world of today, still a lot to be learned and a lot to be done. And I'm looking forward to have an open conversation with you all, how we can put that kind of thinking even more in the world of today. Good question. So it starts with me and it ends with me. And of course, in order to make it happen, you need a great team of designers, project managers, engineers, universities, experts. An idea is like a taste in your mouth. You can feel it, you can sense it, but you don't know the ingredients yet. You don't know how to cook. So you start to do like shopping lists, groceries. You start to try, like a pancake. The first pancake always fails. I don't know why, but it does. Why is that, actually? Why do we live in a world where... Anyway, but okay. And then in the end, you have your Michelin one-star dessert, and it becomes shareable. So I use the cooking as a metaphor, as a reference. And I realize that a lot of people I hire, they need to be able to zoom in, detail, perfection, but they also need to be able to zoom out. Big picture. Why are we doing it? So you need people who can zoom in and zoom out. If you zoom in too much together, you lose detail. You start doing things that nobody notices, nobody cares about. And if you zoom out too much, you don't get anything done. Nothing will be realized. There's always a moment of failure, of moment that it goes wrong. And then you need that kind of skill set. So make sure that you're surrounded by people who can do certain things way better than you can, than I can. And that is the key to success. Yeah. It's very important that they have the same sense of the why. Why are they doing it? Not for money. We're not driven by money or technology. We're driven by idea. The idea will guide you. The idea will help you to come true. It's not easy. It's not always comfortable. But that's the way to do it. Well, creativity, when you are under pressure, that's actually when you get creative, because you have to find a solution. I was just talking to my head of design in Rotterdam for a new project, And there was a crisis. What we wanted could not happen. It didn't work out. And then so what I realized is I have to work with the engineers, zoom out again, and look at it in a different way, change the perception on the project. The same with the ring, the smog-free ring. It's not waste, it's jewelry. And so the moment we think in a different way and we look in a different way, that's when the engineers can, and they can find new solutions. So it starts with perception and helping those engineers to see the same way. And then we can go on a journey together and make it happen. And they like that because I challenge them. And I think in a way they like that, yeah. At least I hope they do. So aesthetics is very interesting because we're not talking so much about what is beautiful or ugly. We never really talk about that. We talk more about the form sort of comes from process. We try to be as minimal, as essential as possible. So removing as much of material, removing as much of visual elements. 80% of our projects are about removing things, removing the ugly exit signs, removing light pollution, so that what you add becomes visible, it starts to shine. And the people feel that space, they feel that openness. It empowers them to create, the audience, the visitors. So it's not me telling you what is beautiful or ugly, it's about me creating a platform where you can create. So both of my parents are teachers. I was kicked out of school twice. I have a really weird relationship with education. I do think that when we think about future, we have to be very sure and very careful that how we educate, they are future-proof. And sort of learning in a linear way, just learning a lot of facts or numbers, is maybe not the skill you need, because computers are way better than that, at that. So that's why I showed you the future skills. You can go online, read the whole report at worldeconomicforum.org. It shows that you have to think in connections. You have to make new connections between different disciplines, between different themes. But most of all, it's very simple. Just be curious, be a sponge. Just suck it all up, I am always an amateur trying to become expert. In the beginning, I don't know, but I want to know. And maybe in Asian culture, this sounds like weakness. Oh, I don't know. It sounds like a weakness. I think it's a good thing. I'm now expert in smog. I'm now expert in butterfly wing. I'm now expert in wind energy. 5 years ago, not. So yes, you should do your homework and listen to your teachers and don't get kicked out of school. But you should also be open and really, let yourself guide you, let yourself be guided by curiosity. I think the ring, the smog-free ring, is a very special part of the project because it sort of added an emotional value, a personal value, not just machine. We never designed jewelry before. We thought, we do this in 4 days. Took us 4 weeks to get it perfect. And then another 4 months to make it really, beautiful. So the ring really helped us to raise funds to build the first tower. And then indeed governments invest in it to make it grow. Maintenance is very little, so that's not a problem. For each city, we designed a new jewelry, like a new diamond, a non-smog-free ring, a different type. We also made cufflinks for the men. Somebody asked if we could do like a piercing here. No, I'm not going to do that. They can do it themselves. So I think part of it is fundraising, but most important is the emotional connection. That's the most important. And maybe it shows that the future generation beauty is not about a Louis Vuitton bag or a Ferrari, but true beauty or future beauty is clean air, clean water, and clean energy. And this generation understands that even more than the previous generation. In the beginning, people were very skeptical. Who's going to wear pollution at his finger? That's really dirty. Ugh. In the beginning, people were very skeptical. But in the end, people embraced it. And they're so happy with it. It's so cool to see. Thank you. Yes. Thank you.